my colleagues. Tevetiav is here. He's also joined by Asbulu Osemwagu.
Amechi, good morning, and good morning, dear listener. It was tough yesterday when the House of Rep expressed their anger over the budget for the Auditor General's office. Amechi, when you don't give a dog a good meat, he will go for a live chicken. They go and look for his own meat to survive. If you ask people to evaluate documents of contract issue, that is their work, Auditor General. You ask them to check these papers of projects that are about to be awarded and those that have been awarded. And you give them little money to do this. Definitely, you're asking them to go and get funds elsewhere. If you don't pay your security man well, he will pay himself well by taking your generator to go and sell, or removing your tire, your batteries to go and sell. So I don't know where we have gotten it wrong. The House of Rep members are angry because they feel one cardinal objective of the Buhari administration is anti-corruption fight and the fight against corruption. That is why the president is wholeheartedly supporting the redesign of the Naira, even though the Obasekis of those states are kicking against it, saying that it's to squeeze the opposition political parties. One would think that the EFCC, the ICPC, the Auditor General's office are prime agencies of government because they are the agencies that are key in the fight against corruption. So, well, the Minister of Finance has another knock on her head after she said she wasn't consulted in the redesign of the Naira. Now, we don't know if she was consulted when that amount was a mark for the Auditor General's office. We await her response to the House of Reps, and let's not be playing with public offices like these, because it says a lot about the administration. Long after the administration has gone, these things will keep re-emerging. In 2018, the same thing played out. Some months before the 2019 election, the same thing played out. A meager amount was earmarked for the Auditor General's office, and it was raised eyebrows. And another thing is, the same thing is happening again. So we need to check it. Those in charge of our economy and those in charge of our finances. Where do you prioritize?
Amechi, good morning to you, good morning, listener. In the current fiscal budget, the Office of the Auditor General has a total budgetary allocation of 4.6 billion, which means that what they're giving them for 2023 is higher than what they have in 2022. I know that there are some civil society organizations that have been pushing forward for an audit bill. There's an audit bill that I think the president is supposed to sign in between the third reading and the president signing, that will give independence to the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, possibly taking it away from the Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Plan. It's fundamental. But again, my concern is the House of Reps, the Senate, they raise dust with all these issues. At the next, they say if this person, someone that, it ends there. When the budget comes out, you still see the same figures or just see something marginal. And when the president was presenting the budget this year, there was a statement he made. He said he's advising or warning the lawmakers not to add to some of the things he has proposed. And remember, there was this murmuring around, and he said, "Wait, I still my turn. I have not finished." So even if the National Assembly increases some figures for the Office of the Auditor General, when it gets to the president to sign, he will possibly be advised against it. And then will be this back and forth issue of, okay, they should go and fix one or two things before I sign, or I'll sign conditionally that they will go back and fix and, remove this, remove that, and even though that trust has been breached with the 2022 Electoral Act. Remember when the president said, I will sign when you go back, amend this thing. They went and refused to amend it. Since then, there has been this no love lost between the executive, and the National Assembly. So that's the challenge that we have. But as Nigerians, we need to do everything to empower the Office of the Auditor General. Don't forget, by the time they are bringing, I think the last report they brought was for 2019 or so. Some of the persons mentioned possibly would have died. Some of them would have left service. There's no way you can go and get them and start. So even the report, they come, this more amount of money was not remitted. This one was not accounted. We just this corruption everywhere, and then it ends.
You're quite right. You talked about an attempt to amend the act establishing the Auditor General's office. The 8th National Assembly passed it to empower the Auditor General to sanction those that violate financial procedure. The president refused to sign. Now, what is the process now? If the Auditor General raises query that people were paid money in civil service or public service to travel for training in UK and they refused to travel, if monies were paid for a job to be done and it's not done, what the Auditor General will do is to submit the report to the Joint Committee of the National Assembly on Public Accounts. And what do? They hold public hearing on it, and at the end of the day, they turn it over to the EFCC and ICPC. And most times that's the end of it. The end of the story. We hear revelations, revenue generating agencies not remitting operating surpluses, discoveries by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. But who are those in charge of these agencies that have been accused? They're not you and I. They're henchmen of those that help the government into power. That is their payback. And the design is to make these agencies that will come after them toothless in such a way that they will not do any work. You mentioned we mentioned the bureau, the Code of Conduct Bureau. After submission of asset declaration forms, the bureau is supposed to send its officers out to verify that what is on ground is what is contained on the paper. What is their staff strength? Do they have the money? They are struggling to even purchase stationaries. And after you leave office, they are also supposed to go for another inspection. Because at the end of your tenure, you're to also fill the form. They are supposed to go to the field. Where is the money?
I mentioned the Auditor General's office. If they make discovery of infractions, are they not supposed to forward it to another agency like the ICPC?
No, they are supposed to forward to the Senate and National Assembly.
Now, we have also the...
And that's where their work ends.
We have also the Fiscal Responsibility and...
Fiscal Responsibility Commission.
And I see here their function is to undertake fiscal and financial studies analysis and diagnose and disseminate the result of the relevant authorities to make rules for carrying out its function under the law. And he went further to say that fiscal budgetary responsibility implies that a government is pursuing an appropriate level of government spending and taxes with direct implication on the sustainability of the public finances, blah, 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 blah. Now, I would not have it, is the Oroseye matter not coming up again? Where you have overlapping functions.
Yes, the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, like from what you read out, has the responsibility to guide government in its expenditure, to show responsibility, like the name suggests, to show responsibility in public finance management. Under that act, we are not supposed to borrow money beyond 3% of the GDP of last year. The one we are to borrow for 2023 is over 5% of the GDP.
Checkmate government.
Yes, it's supposed to checkmate government so that government does not go haywire, showing the highest form of irresponsibility, because there are some things if you do, you're not to borrow for consumption. You're not to borrow to pay salaries. The acts, all these provisions are there. You're to borrow to build capital projects and on projects and to finance projects that will generate revenue. But we see gross violation
but has
of
government
these
been
provisions.
consulting this commission?
Which, when they submit their report, it ends there.
Has government been consulting this commission? You know where I'm driving at? Where I'm driving at is, at the end of the day, government does not consult the Fiscal Responsibility Commission before it goes out.
No, the commission sends report to the government. They ignore them.
Good. Then at the end of the day,
and if you resend it, they may not renew the appointment.
At the end of the day, government goes out to borrow money for project. Then later, the Auditor General's office comes
for payment of salary.
Yes, and others. And later, the Auditor General's office comes to verify this document. And when they are not having enough funds to go out to verify, they step backward and they allow the corruption to flow. So there's a lacuna somewhere. Or maybe when the government is not committed to these agencies, why not match them? Let them be one. You have the due process.
Is it to merge or to form,
Jonathan had the due
or
process
to make them
agency.
effective?
The due process is still in progress. The due
Bureau of
process.
Public Procurement.
Okay, the due process is still there.
Yes.
They are also there.
Mm.
They look at due process in budget, in contract, in award of contract, isn't it?
Yes.
So these agencies are there. They have overlapping functions. Do they agree? Do they come together to agree on certain particular budgetary allocation?
They do. They send their reports. The issue is that they ignore
So
them.
we have a big
the
problem. We
private
have every law instrument, but we are not making progress.
In the private sector, you know, going by the code of corporate governance, companies, especially those quoted, you know, they have their audited
Accounts,
financial for the last.
There are rules by Financial Reporting Council and all that.
All of that, you know, that will be presented at the AGM, which will follow, you know, and but here we have Office of the Auditor that sends a report 2-3 years after. I recall last year when they asked the auditor, he said, look, he doesn't have the men, not just men, women, men and women. He doesn't have the staff,
the personnel.
personnel, you know, to get the job done in the way and manner it should be done, you know, as frequent, because there is this issue of the lapse in what there's. So there is much more that needs to be done. But we also need to understand the budget system that the government operates or has adopted. Is it the envelope? Is it the zero budget? You know, and all of that. Because if it's the envelope, you know that from what you had last year, there's just a markup, which is what we have seen. Because if they received 4.something billion last year, and this year you're having just a markup, you know, so that will apply to every other agency, except perhaps there is an intervention by the president. And if it's zero there, it means you can start from the sky, but nobody will give you that lot.
Well, you know, what the Auditor General does is that when they go through your books, if they believe that some records are not straight, they are not saying there's corruption, but it appears some financial procedure and rules have been violated. They issue audit queries. Go to Auditor General's office, they have issued audit queries to mostly revenue generating agencies, and they will just ignore them. And nothing happens.
Nothing.
And you ask yourself, how can this country move forward?
So,
they are noticing infractions. You send it to them, nothing happens, and they can't do anything. They just be mopping at you. By law, they cannot compel you. They cannot, by way of compulsion, insist that you must reply. They go and discover. There are so many of them, and that is why corruption thrives.
That's why we need to, as media, the civil society, and everybody, we need to join hands.
I help them.
That the audit bill, you know, gets through the National Assembly, and that the president, you know, whoever, whether is I'm not sure that can be done between now, because all of them will be busy with their campaign. But the 10th National Assembly gets it done, and the president, whoever wins, signs it in good time, so that they will also be placed and be placed also on first line charge.
Absolutely,
that's the only way
first line charge. Like INEC can go. And when we talk about strengthening the institutions to fight corruption, it's not all about there's a new sheriff in town. It's not all about a strong man. It's not all about body language. The president's body language. No, they will fizzle out. In other climes, other countries, the institutions are strengthened in such a way that if you do it, even if you're Mr. President, they will indict you. And at the appropriate time, you may be prosecuted and punished. That's why we are raising this issue. Like you said, we have a responsibility to advocate so that these institutions will be strengthened, empowered to do the functions they are mandated to do.
We had that at the state level. We're saying we are speaking this way for the federal national level. The sub-national level is the worst